right, guys, this is going to be the first video for Silly Salmon. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick intro to the game, and then we're going to jump right into section one. So just to give you a quick overview of what this game is, basically it's an infinite scroller. So I'm going to run it really quick so you can see. So you're basically just controlling the salmon here, and basically you just want to continuously dodge objects. So you can see I can basically go left and right, and then I can jump over things. You can also dive under as well. Um, and basically, this is a mouse controlled game, or not a mouse controlled game, but it's a touch controlled game. So this is actually meant to be like played on a phone. And this game actually can be run on a phone if you have one. And if you go to like the StemFuse arcade on your phone, this game is on there. You can play it on your phone. So on your Chromebook, you can use touchscreen to play this as well. So it works on your Chromebook. Um, the way it works is you can do it with a mouse. A mouse, a touch is just equivalent to like a click and drag. Now, one thing to note is this game is basically just survive as long as you can. That's why we call it an infinite scroller. You can see the levels just constantly scrolling. Now, we kind of create an illusion in this game. It looks like the fish is swimming forward constantly, but in reality, the fish is sitting still. Like I'm moving left and right, but the fish actually isn't moving up at all. The fish is just sitting in the same spot and playing a swim animation to make it look like it's moving. But in reality, all the objects coming at me, they're actually bullets moving downward. So, like the land on the sides, these tires, the coins, everything that's moving, those things are actually moving down towards me. And up above the layout, they're just being created constantly. And there's kind of a random generation that we're doing. So the objects are being generated up at the top. They're constantly moving downward, and the fish was just sitting still, basically moving left and right. Um, the other thing this game introduces is there is a store where you can purchase power-ups and use those as well. So that'll kind of be another interesting part to the game. So that's just the brief little intro. So we're going to go in and get the game started together. So I'm just going to close this out. So what I want you guys to do to start section one is go ahead and open Construct. You're going to click New Project. We're going to call it Silly Salmon. Remember, no spaces. Okay. We are going to set the viewport to 720 by 1280. So 720, 1280. Okay, and then click Create. You should get a screen like this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rename our layout one. We're going to rename our event sheet. So take your layout one, go ahead and rename that game. Take your event sheet one, right click it, rename it ES game. Okay, then we're going to add some layers to the game right away. So this layer 0, we're going to rename that background. So you can just call it BG if you want to. And then we're going to add 3 more layers. So you're going to right click and add 3 more layers to the top. So I'm just going to right click in here 3 times and do add layer to top. The top layer is going to be HUD, HUD. The second layer is going to be obstacle. So I'll rename that one. Obstacle. And then the last one is going to be the game layer. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have the layout renamed, you have the event sheet renamed, and you have all of your layers created and labeled just like this. Now, it was really important that that first layer 0 is the background because remember, that's going to be the non-transparent one. That's what puts this white on here. So if you rename that one HUD and put all the other ones underneath it, that's fine. But you need to make sure that all these top layers, okay, all your top layers, transparent should be checked on all of them. So you want to make sure that that is checked on all of these top layers. Otherwise, that white box is going to cover stuff up. Okay. The other thing we want to do on our game layout here, if you go back and click on the game layout, we want to resize that to 720 by 1280. Yes. Same as our viewport. So we're going to do 720, comma, 1280. Press enter. And then if you press Control minus to zoom out, it should look something like this. Like it's a big, tall, long layout like this is what it should look like. One more. Okay, so you want something like this for your layout. Okay. All right. Then at this point, we're going to go ahead and get our first save in. So go ahead and click Menu, Project, Save As. You want to do a cloud save. Make sure this drop down is on Google Drive. If you get a pop-up with an email on it, pick your school email. make sure that it is labeled um, with your first and last name. So when we initially created it, I think I missed that. So yeah, put your first and last name. So I'm going to change this to Mr. So when you save it, you can kind of change it there and it will be good. Um, so we're going to rename it there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make another note on there because I've recorded so many videos. I want to keep this one separate. Okay, so then you're just going to go ahead and click save, and that should be good. Yep, and the file name. So even though up here it doesn't have your name, as long as the file name has your name, that's what's the important part. So just make sure that that file name has your name on it. It makes grading a lot easier for me. If every student turns in a file called Silly Salmon, it's a lot more work for me to figure out whose game is whose. So make sure you get your name on the file name. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some sprites on here. So we're going to start making those land objects that were on the side, that basically like the walls of the game. So on our layout, we want to make sure we're on the background layer first. So highlight the background layer, double click your layout to make a sprite. So then we're going to go ahead and make a sprite. We're going to call it land left, just like that, land left. Okay. Now on these land, and then click on the screen to get into the editor. Okay. We're going to go ahead and load an image. So once again, this is assuming you've downloaded the Silly Salmon asset. So if you need help doing that, the assets are in resources, and there's a video on how to download them. But by this point, you should have already done it for Flip, the robot monkey, so you should know how to do it. But if you need help, there's the video in the assets folder to help you remember how to do that. So we're going to click load. You just have to locate wherever you put that folder. It's probably in your downloads. Okay. I've got mine somewhere else, so I am going to go into here, and then I'm going to go into intro to game assets, and then I've got Silly Salmon assets in here. All right, and so what we want is we want this land object right here. So we can go ahead and click that. And this land object is already set to be land left, so it's good. Okay. Now there are a couple settings we need to change on this that are really important. Okay, the origin, we're gonna move the origin, and then we're also creating an image point. And it's vitally important that these are put in correctly. If they're not done correctly, the scrolling won't work correctly. Okay, so when you guys initially do this and you're testing your land for the first time, if they're not scrolling correctly, I would look at origin and image points right away. So right now we are on land left. We need to get that origin into the bottom left. So make sure that the origin button is selected here. You can right click on the word origin. You're going to quick assign to bottom left. Okay. Then, and if you scroll down here, you'll see the origins tucked down into the bottom left. Okay. Then we need to create a new image point. So we're going to right click over here in the image point window, add a new image point. So we have image point one. We're going to right click image point one, and we're going to quick assign it to the top left. Okay. So you should see the origin down in the bottom left, and that image point one should be in the top left. Okay. That's exactly what we want right there. So then we can close that, and we can just have this guy. It'll be over here on the left somewhere. And then what we need to do is we're actually going to create a separate object called land right. Now, what we could do is we could make the object reload in the sprites and do all of that, or we can do something different, which is called duplicate or clone. So it's different than like if you press control click to make another copy of it, that would just be another instance of land left, but we actually want a separate object that's just copied from this one. So in my object window, I'm going to right click on land left, and I'm going to clone it, and it's going to be called land left 2. So then what I do is I single click that land left 2, and I'm going to go to the properties in the upper left, and I'm going to rename it, and it's just going to be called land right. Okay, so we want a land right and a land left. Now, this whole duplicating thing, if that was confusing to you, if it's easier, just make a new sprite and call it land right. That's all that we did, basically. I just saved us some steps by cloning it. I think in the presentation, they have you manually make it, so this is kind of a bonus thing. But to me, it's just easier to clone it because it saves us a few steps, okay? So then what you want to do is you want to take this land right and drag it onto the layout. Okay, and we're going to double click it and do a little bit of editing. So for the land right, we want the glass on the right side. So we're going to click this mirror button right up here. It's a horizontal mirror. So you just click that, and now it's flipped to the right side. Okay. Then we want to have the origin in the bottom right. So make sure the origin window is here. Right click, quick assign to bottom right. Okay, and if you scroll down, you should see the origin down there in the bottom right. And then the image point one's already created because I cloned it from the other one. So if you made this as a brand new sprite, then you would have to right click and add the image point one here. So I'm going to click on image point one. I'm going to right click it. We're going to quick assign to top right. Okay. So the main thing to remember is on your land right, the origin's bottom right, image point is top right. And then on the land left, it's the opposite. The origin's bottom left, image point is top left. Okay. That's what you want for that. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to set the position of these objects to get them placed where we want. So on land right, the position is going to be 720 by 1280. So we're going to go 720, comma 1280. Okay, and that's right where we want it. You can see it lines in there perfectly. Okay, it should be above the layout a little bit, but it should line up snug right into that corner there. Okay, and then on land left, that position is 0, 1280. So we're going to go 0, comma 1280. That, and we've got that positioned in there snugly, okay? Now, what I would do at this point is we don't want these to move around, so we're gonna go ahead and lock down the background. Now, before you do that, you do wanna make sure that these are actually on the background, so you should have had that layer highlighted when you created them. If you accidentally made these on the wrong layer, just select them, go to layer here in the properties and make sure they're set to background, and then you can go ahead and lock it down. Now we're going to put the water on here. It's going to be the river. So we're going to put that on the game layer. So go ahead and highlight the game layer. We are going to double click and make a sprite. And we're going to call it river. Oops, capital R. Insert, click on the screen. Okay, and then we're going to just do the resize tool up here. And we're going to make it 480 by 1280. So we're going to go 480, comma 1280. Oops, 480, and then go to height and do 1280. There we go. That should be good. Okay. We're just going to paint bucket and just make it whatever color you want your water to be. So I'm just going to kind of pick a nice bluish color here. I'll go a little bit darker, maybe like this. You go ahead and just pick whatever water color you want. Okay, so then I can close that. And then we are going to set the position here, and we're going to go 360 by 640. So 360, comma 640, right there. Perfect location. Then the other thing is we want the water to be see-through. We want it to be semi-transparent. So on the river, in the properties here, you'll see opacity. We're going to change that to 50%. Okay. So it's going to look like it just became a lighter blue, but it's actually the same blue that we had. It's just now it's kind of see-through. So that's why it appears to be lighter. Okay. All right. So we've got that. Next, we're going to add our actual main character to the game. So we're still on the game layer. Double click and we're going to make another sprite. And we're going to call it Salmon. Okay. Then let's make sure. Just click on the screen, and we're going to just load in the salmon image. So we're going to go load. So here there's a folder called salmon. So go into there. Actually, let me go back a step. So actually, don't go into the salmon folder yet. Just do this single salmon image. The salmon folder has all of the animations. We'll do those later. So for now, just go ahead and put the salmon image in like this. And then you can close that. We don't have to change any other settings for now. Okay. We are going to, we want to put this salmon now underneath the water. So you can see all the salmon's above the water. We want to put him below the water. So anytime you have objects on the same layer, but you want to control what's on top of the other, you can do what's called Z order. So if I were to just right click this salmon, we can go to Z order and we can put him to the bottom of the layer. So now you can see because that water's transparent, it looks like the fish is underwater, okay? Now, the issue we have though now is I want to select the fish again to change its position. And you can see if I try to click on the fish, it's going to click on the water because the water's on top. So what we need to do is if you want to select the salmon again, since he's underneath, we're just going to grab him from the object window. So if you just single click right here in the object window, that will highlight him over here. Okay, so if you ever have a problem selecting something because it's underneath, just pick it from the object window on the right side. And what we're going to do is we're going to set his position to 360 by 900, 360 comma 900, press enter. And now he is positioned perfectly where we want him. Okay. We are going to change a couple of properties on the salmon. So in the properties window, we need to add the bullet behavior. And if you remember when I did that demo at the beginning, I said the salmon actually isn't really moving up. So you would think, well, why do you need the bullet behavior? Well, what we're going to do is the bullet behavior, we're just going to use it to make him move left and right when we want to. Okay. But the thing is by default, we don't want him to move at all. We want to control when he moves. So we're going to set the bullet speed here in the properties window to 0. So you want the bullet speed 0. So it means he has the behavior, but he has no speed. So he's not going to move until we give it speed. So we're going to code it so that when we drag to the right, we'll give him speed and have him move to the right. Okay. Um, and then there's another really important one here where it says set angle. We need to turn that off. Okay. So just to recap, you highlight the salmon in the properties window or the project window here on the right. Okay. We set the position to 360 by 900. We added the behavior down here for bullet, and then you want the bullet speed 0, and you want set angle off. Okay. All right. Then we need to add some instance variables to our salmon. So with our salmon selected, you should see instance variables here on the left. Now, this is where this game gets a little bit more complicated. This game looks fairly simple, right? But the coding for the touch controls actually is a lot more complicated than you think. We actually have to tell it when to determine if we're swiping left or swiping right, if it's a horizontal or if it's a vertical swipe. So to help determine what way we're swiping, we have to add variables here to determine the X and Y coordinate of our touch. So just so you know, these variables are going to seem confusing right now, but they'll make more sense later. Just understand that we need these variables to help control the touch movement. Okay. So we're going to add a variable, and the first one's going to be called touch X start. And we're just going to separate it with an underscore. So it's going to be touch X start like that. Okay. And the value on this can be 0. And then we're going to make another one, and we're going to make one called touch X end. So basically, we want to determine the starting and end points of our touches, basically. So we want touch X end. Okay, and these are, so this is basically going to represent the starting point of our X coordinate and the end point of our X coordinate when we touch the screen. So what happens is when we're doing a swipe, the computer registers your starting X and Y position and it registers the ending X and Y position. And so basically by comparing if it was a longer X swipe or if it's a longer Y swipe, it's going to help us determine if it's a vertical or a horizontal swipe. Okay, so now we're going to need 2 more for the Y coordinates. So we're going to do a touch Y start and a touch Y end. Okay, so I'm going to add another one, touch Y start, and then we need a touch Y end. Touch Y underscore end. Okay, and the value on all those can be 0, so it should look like this. Okay, now the other thing we're going to do, there's going to be another variable that we need. So add one more instance variable. It's going to be called lane. And we're going to have the number equal 2. Okay, so the reason why we're going to have the lane variable, so you can close this, we're basically going to set up 3 lane markers on here, and we're going to do that in this video before we finish up. We're going to have like a lane 1 right here. Lane 2 is going to be right where the fish is right now, and we're going to have a lane 3 on the right. So the fish, the salmon, needs a lane number variable to determine which lane he's currently in. And then basically we're using the lanes to tell him when to stop. So what it's going to be is we're not going to just freely move left and right on here. Basically, it's going to be like you swipe and the fish is going to slide until it hits a marker and then it's going to stop. And then the reason we need to track lanes is because I don't want him to be able to move left and go like through the land here. So we're basically going to say like if we try swiping left when the lane is 1, he can't move. And then when he goes this way, his lane is going to be 3. And we want to say if you're swiping right when the lane is 3, he can't move. So this is why like programming can be a little bit tricky, is because we have to put in all these references for the computer to help the computer understand what we really want it to do. It's not as simple as saying that if the fish is here, we can't move. Well, the computer doesn't know what here means. So that's why we need that lane variable to determine that. Okay. So getting on with the lane is we're going to make the lane markers now. Okay. And for this, we're going to stay on the game layer And just to reiterate, the fish should be on the game layer, the river should be on the game layer, okay? And then the two land objects should be on the background. So now we're going to make the lane markers and they're going to stay on the game layer. So let's make sure that that's highlighted. We're going to make a new sprite. We're going to call it lane marker, okay? It's got the lane marker. Click on the screen to make it. So the lane marker, we're going to resize it to 20 by 20. 20 by 20. And then we're just going to fill it red. You can zoom in if you want to, but just this little box here, we're just going to make it red. Go ahead and find red, fill that in. That's all we should have to do there. Then we are going to set the position. So in the properties for the lane marker, set the position to 200 by 900. Okay, like that. Perfect. So the lane marker is right where we want it. And then what we have to do is we have to tell it which lane it is. So this also is going to need an instance variable to track what lane it is. So we're going to click on it one time. We're going to add an instance variable, and we're going to call it lane number. Now, the reason we're going to call it lane number instead of just lane is because we don't want to get confused with the salmon's lane variable. So if we're referring to lane, that's the salmon's lane. If we're referring to lane number, that's the lane of the marker, okay? And so this lane number is going to be 1. So go ahead and have the default be 1, okay? And like I said, this lane is going to be 1. We're going to put another one here for 2 and another one here for 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically have another instance of this. So you can hold control and just drag another one out. Or if it's easier, just drag one from this screen. That works too. We're going to need 3 of them. So however way you want to do it, you want to get 3 of them up here, okay? So I'm going to click the second one here. And this position is going to be 360 by 900. And that's going to be the middle one. It should go right on top of the salmon. And this lane number, we're going to change to 2. So the instance variable should be there already, changing it to 2. Okay, and then we're going to go to the third one. The third one's going to be 520 by 900. Okay, and we're going to change the lane number to 3. Okay, so I would just double check, but make sure that this one, when you click on it, the lane number down here says 3. When you click on the middle one, the lane number should say 2. When you click on the left one, the lane number should be 1. And then the salmon, if you highlight the salmon's lane variable should be 2. And notice that his variable is 2 and the lane marker he is on is 2. Basically, when we code it, we're going to code it so that his lane will match the lane number each time it moves. And basically, we're just using that to track which position he's in. So basically, there's like these 3 main lanes. So the salmon's either going to be here, here, or here. He's never going to stop in between. So we're kind of setting it up to have more control over that. Now, we don't want these lane markers to be so big. So what we're going to do, we just made it bigger so it's easy to position them and kind of control them, but now we're pretty much done with them. So what I want you to do is click lane marker in the project window. And the reason why we're doing that is that it selects all 3 at the same time, and then I can resize them all at the same time. So with the lane marker selected in the upper right here, now you can go to the properties window and you can change the size, and we're just going to make it 4 by 4. So 4, 4. They're going to get really small. Okay, like almost to the point you can't see them. But the reason we want them so small is we want it very precise where the salmon lands, and we don't want a larger thing there. It might be less accurate if it's larger. So we're just doing that to be precise. Okay. All right. That is it for section 1.